Welcome to Classroom 2 Courtroom. Here's your host, Scott Benton.
Hey everyone, Scott Benton here. How are you? I'm the host of the Classroom 2 Courtroom podcast, where we help you easily transition from a law school student into your professional life and your professional career as an attorney, and where we like to make the practice of law fun. And today we're going to answer the question of how do you learn best as an attorney? How do you learn best as an attorney? Are you a law student or recent graduate waiting for admission to the California bar and eager to gain real-world legal experience? Join the Legacy Lawyers' coveted associate programs in sunny Southern California. Our hands-on spring, summer, and fall programs provide opportunities to dive into high-stakes probate litigation. If you aspire to litigate and thrive in an America First culture that values God, family, and country, we want you on our team. Don't wait, space is limited. Call 714-766-0457 to learn more about this exciting opportunity. That's 714-766-0457. Elevate your legal career with the Legacy Lawyers. As I'm sure you probably already realize, when you start your first job as an attorney, there's just going to be a whole lot of stuff that you got to learn. And you got to learn how to get up to speed on how to practice law as an attorney, which we talk about a lot on this podcast. We use the success cycle. That's what comes up over and over again, and we discuss in depth. And it's also, by the way, that's exactly what this podcast is here to show you how to do. We're here to show you how to get up to speed as a practicing attorney and how to do that practice. So tune in for more and learn everything you need to learn before you make it into your job as an attorney, your first job and your second job. You're also going to have to learn how to work in the particular practice area that the firm provides legal services for. And you got to do that if you're not already an expert. And frankly, if you are an expert, sometimes there's little kind of nuances that you may or may not know that you want to make sure you're up to speed on. In any case, the practice area is something when you start at a firm, either as a new attorney or maybe you've been practicing for a couple of years, you want to make sure that you're aligned with the type of law that firm is practicing. And the other thing that you're going to have to learn is the business systems that the law firm is using. Those are probably going to be different from law firm to law firm. So for the most part, it might take a little while for you to master different databases and the different platforms they're using. Maybe they're using like the Google platform, everything is on Google, or maybe they're using Microsoft or whatever. There's all kinds of different platforms, and chances are there's going to be a platform or two or three or four that you're not all that familiar with. You need to be able to master those quickly, efficiently, as soon as you can, so that you can just simply do your job. Now, when it comes to learning all of this new material, and not to mention, it's going to be new material, it's going to come along all the time, so you can't really discount that. There's going to be new processes and maybe new platforms that the law firm starts using. So you need to make sure that you're in the best possible mind space for you to learn all that you need to learn and as quickly as you can. Because after you've learned all this stuff, you started your job, it's not like you don't learn anything anymore. There's going to be all kinds of new stuff that comes along all the time. So you have to learn how to learn. You have to learn how to learn fast, because that's going to have a significant impact on how well you do as an attorney. And remember that no matter how personable and likable you are, and you are personable and likable, I certainly think you're personable and I think you're likable. Even with those qualities, if you're at 100% on those qualities, it's still your responsibility to bill for time. It's your responsibility to meet and exceed your minimum billable hours. When people say you have to meet your minimums, it really means you have to go above your minimums. But you have to definitely meet the minimums, but you want to go and shoot for going above your minimums. You also, by the way, you need to generate revenue from your cases. You're selling legal services for time, or you're selling time to do legal services. That's what your clients are paying for. And you want to produce a profit for the firm that you're working for. All businesses are in business, or all companies, let's say, all firms, they're in business to make a profit. So if you're in a position where you're not picking up everything that you really need to master, then you should probably stop what you're doing and figure out what the best place is going to be for you to learn new material. As you might know, in recent years, there's been this massive and significant push towards remote work where attorneys will work from home and sometimes it'll be like a portion of the week, or some attorneys, it's the entire week. They just work from home 100% of the time, or as much as possible. Now, one of the reasons that working remotely became so popular because people realized that they saved a lot of money on car expenses, all that wear and tear. They felt more productive because cutting down on their commute time meant for them lower stress levels because they're not driving for 45 minutes to, an hour every direction. That shaves off a lot of wear and tear on your car, and it shaves off just a lot of stress time. By the way, if you haven't figured this out already, the one way to beat traffic, so if you're driving half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour longer, I hope not, but let's say you are, because sometimes people are in that position. The one way to beat the traffic is to start listening to audiobooks if you can. If you can listen to audiobooks, I prefer business audiobooks, nonfiction stuff. Occasionally I'll listen to fiction, but mostly I try to sharpen all my business skills by listening to audiobooks. It's a great way to absorb information. Podcasts do it as well, but I find that audiobooks, especially, by the way, those by Nightingale Conant, check them out, nightingale.com, or you can just find them on Amazon. That's some of the best business material I've found out there, and you might benefit as well. So that's the problem with driving, and people have figured out that not driving reduces their stress levels, as I'm sure you've probably experienced when you haven't had to drive somewhere. Now, one of the problems with working remotely could be that because you're now not in the office every day, that when changes are made or new information comes along, you don't necessarily see those changes right away. And you might not have really even any context for why the change took place. And you might have, less access to people in your office who can help you cut through a lot of wasted trial and error time sitting at home trying to figure this stuff out. But the point is, and I'm using remote work here as an example, this may not be the best way that you learn. It's possible you need to make a change, and that change might include going into the office every single day until you've been able to master whatever subject you're working towards, and working towards understanding and figuring out how to now incorporate that new information into your work processes. So figuring out how you learn best is going to be all about maximizing your ability to absorb information. That's the whole key. You want to learn a new subject that you know nothing about as fast as possible. And now let's flip that scenario around completely. Maybe instead of working at home, you work in the office all day long, every day. And you're finding it's actually not the best way for you to learn. There's just too many distractions, and trying to find a good 45-minute chunk of quality time to be able to focus on a single subject is a tall order. That's pretty difficult to come by. If that's the case for you, then you really need to figure out where you learn best. So you might want to think back, as an example, to when you were in law school and you were a student, and you might remember, you probably did this, I did, going to a particular coffee house that you loved, and you'd go and get an Americano or a latte, and you'd sit down, you put in your earplugs, and you'd get to work. And before you knew it, 5 hours passed, and you didn't even notice it was 5 hours. You got 5 hours of solid work under your belt. Now, maybe after you graduated, you stopped going to coffee houses, and you tried to learn everything you needed to in your office, or maybe home, and you got like a chaotic home or something like that. It's just both environments are chaotic, and learning anything, it's just simply not working. It's possible also, by the way, if you don't know this, and if you've conditioned yourself a little, you're missing your Americanos, which somehow triggered your brain to snap into a focused work mode. And how was it you were entering that place of just complete flow where there's really no time? So maybe what you can do is go in the evenings after work, or on the weekends, or early in the morning to that or another coffee house, wherever you are, where whatever is appropriate, whatever, if it's open or whatever, and you can sit down and get your work done that way. The other option, of course, if you can sneak away from work during the day, if that's an option, then you can go over to a nearby cafe or something, get your Americano, plug in your earplugs, and get into that zone of productive learning whenever you have to do that. Probably not every day, but maybe there's something you really need to focus on, and at work, there's just not an opportunity. So figuring out where you're most productive is going to be an exploration that's well worth taking. The parallel is this. So for book writers, let's say, there's been a long tradition of figuring out how to create the best writing conditions possible for them. They call it a ritual, really, is what they do. And sometimes they're weird. They have little figurines and stuff they'll put out, and they might play with the time of day. So they might get up really early and write early in the morning when it's still dark outside, or sometimes they'll wait till it's super late at night, like 2 a.m. Something just depends on their wake-sleep schedule, but they'll try all kinds of different ways to figure out what the ideal environment is for them to get the writing done. Sometimes they'll do things like light a candle. I had one friend who pour himself a glass of wine. Other people, I've heard of people, they'll do the Invocation of the Muse by T.E. Lawrence. They'll bring the muses in to inspire them, to inspire their writing. So they'll recite the Invocation of the Muse. T.E. Lawrence is Lawrence of Arabia. And that will put them in the proper mind space that makes them extremely productive and very creative. So I hope that's helpful in thinking about how you learn best as an attorney, and then consciously working towards providing that productive space for yourself. Now, as I'm sure, especially if you're still a law student, that really there isn't a whole lot of time available for you to not keep your mind as up to date as possible. You can't let that go. You have to find a space. You have to carve out a space for yourself to be able to absorb new information, because there's just simply so much of it. So you're going to have to find a way to minimize the amount of time that it generally takes for you to absorb new materials. That's speed learning idea. So again, I hope that's been helpful. I'm Scott Benton. I'm the host of the Classroom to Courtroom podcast. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope it was enjoyable. If it was enjoyable and you like the material that we're putting together and you want to receive an alert every time we put out a new episode, you can go to our website. Our website is classroom2courtroom.com. That's classroom, the number 2, courtroom.com. Leave us your contact information. You will get an alert when we put out a new episode. Also, if you like this material, don't forget to share and subscribe. That will incidentally also help you stay on top of our newest episodes. And until next time, we hope you'll join us in making the world a better place, one client at a time. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us on Classroom 2 Courtroom, the podcast designed to help launch your first-time legal career. If you have any feedback or ideas for episodes you'd like to hear, you can always find us at classroom2courtroom.com, where you can leave comments, ask questions, and even join our online community. And always remember, by becoming an excellent and confident practicing attorney, you actually make the world a better place. Now get out there and master the art of practicing law.